right now. Hello and welcome back to this. We now have Pascal Viren and Arne Huschenbeth, two of the few remaining undefeated players in the room, looking to continue that streak. Pascal Viren on his graveyard-based deck that's doing all sorts of things with spider spawning. Arne Huschenbeth with his graveyard-based deck that's looking to reanimate some big old bodies. Early doors, we're not likely to see too much in terms of super huge aggression. But there will be a lot of setup going on in these first 2-3 turns where each of these players is looking to get big things going on in their graveyard, and the Heap Doll that is in Pascal Viren's main deck may prove pretty important here.
Yeah, Arne got a little unlucky during the draft. He didn't get any Resurrection. Resurrection is a common, and I think he started with Burial Rites. His first pack was Burial Rites. So heading to draft Black White Reanimator, but he just couldn't find a Resurrection.
And a Faithless Looting here, just discarding a couple of lands, so not the highest impact in terms of a Faithless Looting just yet, but Heap Doll already in play will be a little bit of a hammer blow to what Arne Huschenbeth has going on. He does have the likes of Last Gasp to get rid of it, but if he doesn't find a removal for it, it does mean that that's one extra hoop that he needs to jump through before he's going to be able to get the big reanimation plan online.
Yeah, his other plan is just to make tokens off
Occasion Cry?
Occasion Cry, yeah.
And that one works fairly well. I think he has actually got an Occasion Cry in hand here, as we see Pascal hitting all his colors, using Faithless Looting once more. And again, it looks like he still has more lands that he's potentially going to be ditching here.
He has 4 of them. He has 4 Criers in his deck.
Arne does? Wow. I mean, I guess that's a great way of also making sure that if you draw an Ulamog's Crusher, that you can make sure that it goes into the graveyard where you can get it back at a little bit of a discount. 8 mana, quite a lot for the Eldrazi. So 4 lands and a spider spawning in the graveyard thus far. That spider spawning not looking too scary just yet. Occasion Crier will be a good blocker for what's going on early. Vengeful Rebirth there, the pickup for Pascal Viren. 2 copies of that in his deck. It will mean that he's got a big burn spell that can go wherever he needs it to, that can also get back an expensive card if needed. Wickabout Elder. Not sure that its ability is going to be super relevant in this matchup, but just a 3/3 for 4, it's already a solid body.
It's okay. It's not great. It's fine.
Yeah.
The thing is...
All right, here's a question for Viren.
Yeah, he could have... Well, if it didn't have to sacrifice a creature this turn, in the face of a Reanimator spell, he could have removed the -1/-1 counter on the Elder to target a Heap Doll, and then sacrifice the Heap Doll to exile a card from a graveyard.
Oh, interesting.
Just so it gets bigger, just so the treefold gets bigger.
So Pascal here does sacrifice the Heap Doll. Maybe he doesn't fully appreciate what might be coming later. Wants to keep the bigger body around. And now we have
a 4/4.
A big old body.
Yeah, this one is a good one because it's a creature that doesn't stick to the battlefield, and that you can make good use of when it's in the graveyard with spider spawning.
Yeah, current creature count in the graveyard too. That is something we'll try and keep at least a vague check on.
What's his converted mana cost? 7 or 8?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, which does, of course, mean it's also a good Vengeful Rebirth target.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go to the dome, why not?
Well, Arne is still 19, so it's not exactly relevant at this point.
Let's see how long that lasts. An attack means an activation of Occasion Crier. That's a Grave Scrabbler that's being discarded, so Madness into play, returning the Slum Reaper. So this is a nice little sequence of plays here for Huschenbeth. You can set up some nice blocks here if he chooses. The Grave Scrabbler really not that exciting if you're putting it into play with anything other than Madness.
Yeah, this sequence is very interesting, as so Occasion Crier is supposed to make you discard a card to have 2 tokens.
Yeah, it's a cost.
So you turn 1 card of your hand for 2 1/1s. it's about the cost of 2/1, maybe a little steep.
Yeah.
But then, since it didn't actually discard a card, it was a Scrabbler. So it's basically a -1, so like a value of +1 to have 2 counters, and the Scrabbler retrieves the creatures from the graveyard. So the activation of the Crier is efficiently a +2 instead of -1.
So here we see Entomb for Unburial Rites. Entomb can put any card from your deck in the graveyards, and because Unburial Rites has flashback, that's a perfectly fine choice to put in the graveyard here. And we know that Acacian Crier will be able to allow the discard of something like, for example, the Ulamog's Crusher that's in Huschenbeth's hand. So he's setting up for a very big turn here. Make a couple of tokens, also a big old 8/8.
The problem I see with this plan is that if that's Arn's plan to win the game, and if the Crusher dies, then he's left with just a Crier. And Crier is not exactly very good to close games when your opponent is at 20.
Yeah, and there is the potential even for that 8/8 to be dealt with here by Pascal Viren. While dealing with an 8/8 with damage seems a steep hill to climb, he does have the likes of Vengeful Rebirth, and that plus it blocking something somewhere when it first comes into play could be enough. Alright, so the 8/8's in play. It's got Annihilator 2 and it has to attack each turn if able. So in some respects, if Arne Huschenbeth is to make the quote-unquote mistake of blocking with it, he's only going to do it this turn. Let's see what Pascal Viren wants to do with what he's got going on. The Verdant Eidolons that he has in his deck, he's not got too many gold creatures to return them with.
Yeah, 8 damage to the Crusher.
Ah, the perfect amount. I hadn't realized that was the converted mana cost that we had in our graveyard. So that a very efficient bit of interplay there that we see from Pascal Viren. Gets to get a nice little attack in as well. These Acacian Crier tokens, they're doing a great job of blocking for Huschenbeth, but they're not really advancing his board state in any meaningful sense just yet.
Yeah, next turn is going to be it costs 8, so it's going to take a few turns for the 7/7 to hit the battlefield, unless he just wants to evoke it and have a 4/4 instead.
So there we saw Acacian Crier creating a few tokens, and then the Slum Reaper killing off a citizen, but also killing off the one creature Pascal Viren had left on the battlefield.
But the more the game advances, the more spider spawning is threatening.
Eternal Witness getting back a Heap Doll.
Wow.
This is Pascal Viren recognizing that it's happened once. In principle, there could be some more graveyard shenanigans coming from this black-white deck, and he just doesn't want to have to deal with that.
I don't know if he's aware that Arn does not have that many Reanimator spells. Don't they have the deck lists?
Not quite sure on this one.
I think they had the pool because the draft was streamed, and to make it fair for everybody, I think they don't have the deck lists, but they do have the pools of each player.
So Emancipation Angel coming along, meaning that in this case, just a land being picked up. In other circumstances, you sometimes see the Emancipation Angel setting up some good coming to play abilities. This time round, Slum Reaper just wanting to hang about though by the looks of things. Okay, so we now have Keeper of the Eyes again, generating more tokens.
Yeah, Pascal picked up the second Vengeful
Watcher the
Rebirth.
Red there.
So Arn is potentially on 2 life here.
Yeah, a virtual 2 as we call it. The big burn spell ready to go. And it was interesting, at the point that the second Vengeful Rebirth was picked, the alternative there was another Faithless Looting, and they're both valuable cards for Pascal in his deck. He went big, hoping that he was going to be able to get to the mid and late game all right without the extra Faithless Looting, and so far that seems to have played out just fine for him.
And now he just wants his creatures to go to the graveyard, make a big spider spawning, and hopefully have 2 of them connect next turn.
I mean, the alternative being, of course, that he successfully hits for 2, in which case Vengeful Rebirth becomes much more interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well that's it. No blocks. 8U. With that play, I believe they don't actually have the deck list, because Arn would probably have seen that one coming.
Yeah, so we're just gonna let the game sort of reset itself here. We're on a little bit of time. We had a little bit of delay while we were showing you various draft games, so we're just moving things along on our video so we can make sure that we can bring you as much magic as possible. The good news about being on a little bit of time walk is it does mean that the amount of shuffling that we end up having to show between games just gets compacted down a little bit. We get to bring you that much more magic, and given the quality of some of the decks that we're seeing from this Ultimate Masters draft, I certainly don't mind a little bit more magic. Loving the look of this deck that we see from the Belgian, who was in the top 8 of a Pro Tour relatively recently at Rivals of Ixalan, I think it was, that he made his last Pro Tour top 8. Great performance by the Belgian player. But both these players currently 10-0, looking to keep that stretch going, because at some point you start thinking about, well, you know, this is a big GP, but someone's got to be in the top 8, someone's got to win the whole thing, and they're getting close enough now that they've still not picked up their first loss. There's the potential they could get there.
Still 5 rounds to go, and 2 losses is...
It's a big GP, I guess, so yeah, the losses sting a little bit more than they might do at a smaller one in terms of tiebreakers.
If you pick up your 2 losses right now, then it might be a little hard. Otherwise, if you keep winning now, you have a better shot.
It's always the thing when people come along to us on coverage and say, oh, you know, I'm having a lovely time at this GP. I'd really love to get into the feature match area and maybe even get on camera. We can't guarantee that you're going to get in camera early on, but you know what? If you keep on winning, sooner or later, you'll be in that feature match area. Just win it. If you win every round, then we'll definitely find a way of getting you in, even if it's in the finals. So here we are back into our game 2 here. Pascal Viren against Arne Huschenbeth, and he gets the Satyr Wayfinder, meaning he can set things up. A couple of creatures in the graveyard there, the other Satyr Wayfinder and a Heap Doll.
And a Swamp.
You wouldn't have minded drawing some of those creatures, but them being in the graveyard does mean that future Spider spawnings get that little bit better. He's going to have all 4 colors of mana on turn 4.
Does he have the Forgotten Alchemy to go with it?
Well,
I think he does.
Yeah. This is premium quality magic that we're seeing here.
Oh, wow. That's
a little much on the old lands from that Forbidden Alchemy, but you know what?
But that's a good pickup, because then
you don't have to draw them.
Yeah, at least you don't draw them.
Yeah, like if he had drawn 4 lands in a row, that would have been pretty disastrous. There's not too many decks that really want to be getting that heavily land flooded at this stage in the game. So yeah, great Forbidden Alchemy, even in spite of the fact that the card that it put into his hand wasn't a super exciting one. Wicked Elder coming along.
Interesting that he picked up a basic land instead of the Terramorphic Expense. So that probably means he has everything curved.
I think he just drew a Groundskeeper as well. Value all around.
For the next few turns. Otherwise, he would have picked up the Expense to make his deck lighter on lands.
Just makes it so that he's going to be able to be a little bit more active using all of that mana. Look at all my colors of mana. And my spiders coming from the grave.
3 spiders.
It's not the first spider spawning that gets you. There's potential for a lot of copies of spider spawning to be played in this game. No loops going on, no crazy mystic retrievals and similar, but when you have 3 copies of spider spawning and there's flashback going on, and Vengeful Rebirth. Yeah.
So he has the potential to play 8.
8 spider spawnings.
Actually more. Oh, more than that.
Eternal Witness as well? Yeah, this could get quite out of hand.
9. Does he have a way to bring back the Eternal Witness?
I don't believe so, but sound off in the chat if we've missed a potential spider spawning there somewhere. This Groundskeeper just getting to casually pick up a few extra lands in the graveyard, so Pascal will never ever run out of lands. At some point he'll be able to cast all the spider spawnings. And
Ulamog's Crusher here.
Ulamog's Crusher very early will take some chunks out.
It's going to do some work. So Arn basically has 3 Reanimator spells.
Yes.
He has Embroider Rites, he has Miraculous Recovery, and Entomb.
Yes.
Entomb allows him to fetch an Burial Rites from his deck and put it in his graveyard to flashback it later in the game. Okay,
so a couple of cards going to have to get sacrificed here, but in response, Pascal getting back some lands.
It's a good way to interact with the...
No, he has
Crusher.
So he's sacrificed 2 real creatures, blocked with 1 spider. This means that future spider spawnings will be all that much more powerful. The Annihilator normally on Illumog's Crusher, especially if it comes down this early, is enough to really put a hurting on the development of the other side, but there's going to be so many spiders coming along here that it may well be that Pascal Viren can kind of tread water for a little bit.
It's still a losing battle here because the sacrificing 2 permanents is still going to hurt. I mean, he's going to make a lot of spiders this turn or next turn, but there's no end in sight for the Willemok's Crusher. He's going to crush. He's going to keep crushing. And even though you make spiders don't fare very well against Eldrazi's.
You need a lot of spiders before you start to get ahead of these Eldrazi. So he's up to 6 spiders now. So that buys him a couple of turns of Ulamog Crusher attacks where he's not going to have to lose lands.
And look at Arn's hand.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's loaded. Last gasp, double face feathers, and is it a beacon apparition? I think it is.
I like a Faithless Looting here. Hissing Iguana, kind of interesting. Basking Rootwaller, one of the cards discarded to Faithless Looting. Just a little bit of extra value there from the madness of the Basking Rootwaller.
Another problem here is that if he manages to kill the Crusher, there's still Unburial Rites to bring it back.
Yeah, because it was only the front half of Unburial Rites that got used to get Ulamog's Crusher into play. Flashback Faithless Looting. Well, he's found another copy of Spider Spawning.
Is that a Vengevine?
Ooh. And he's cast 1 creature so far this turn rather.
The Rootwaller, yes.
The interaction between Basking Rootwaller and Vengevine, one that has been good enough for legacy play. Cast a Hissing Iguana, get back Vengevine. So this is quite the board that he's been able to build up here. And yeah, might as well get in with that Vengevine. It's not one that there's an obvious, straightforward set of blocks for here.
Yeah, Arne had the option to just exile it from the graveyard, but decided not to.
So last gasp's being played on the Iguana, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Get rid of that one, which actually represents a little bit of a persistent source of damage.
Especially with all the tokens, with the spiders and the soldiers.
Now then, Pascal Viren, he does have a lot of lands in play, but equally he's got a relatively mana-hungry set of plans for the next few turns.
Yeah, and I like Arn's plan to not exile the Vengevine. Because, well, Vengevine is not a problem here. He can block for a long time. And, well, it's just a 4/3, and he has 2 Face Feathers. He's keeping the apparitions for... sorry about that. For the Vengeful Rebirth.
Yeah.
It's just 1 mana, counter Vengeful Rebirth.
Yeah, it seems very efficient when you've got one person paying 6 mana for a big return spell that also represents Burn to the Head, one that ultimately was enough to win the game for Pascal Viren in game 1. A 1 mana counter for it seems absolutely fantastic.
Well, especially...
Yeah, it's...
Especially since he knows he has 2.
Yeah.
And that's a card you actually plan your whole game around. Pascal is planning to deal enough damage to finish off with Vengeful Rebirth, but he can't plan around the apparition.
So we have now hit a point where there are enough creatures in play that Pascal Viren can meaningfully plan to block and kill an Ulamog's Crusher, which is no mean feat. And of course, because all those spiders have 2 toughness, even if he ends up throwing, 7 spiders plus a friend in front of Ulamog's Crusher, he does still have the potential to keep some alive. Though a second Ulamog's Crusher, thanks to Unburial Rites. Now we're in real problem town.
How about a Maelstrom Pulse here?
Ooh, that'll be a nice one.
That would be sweet.
We know that one is not going to be coming from Pascal Viren, but He may yet find a way around this.
It's in the colors. Well, he doesn't have one.
The first crusher comes along, and now we start to see Pascal Viren sacrificing lands. Actually, already sacrificed an island last turn, so he's...
Yeah, he played his blue spell, so he doesn't need it anymore.
Now, just to be sure, he's got the Vengevine, pumped up the Basking Root Waller, so this is exactly 8. 2 more creatures in the graveyard, so future Spider Spawnings, as previously mentioned, get all the better. And it may be that Pascal Viren here, if he just flashes back Spider Spawning once again, which will be his 4th Spider Spawning of the game, will have enough creatures that even this second Crusher is not too big a worry. In principle, getting 2 Crushers in play seems great because Annihilator 4 on one turn is kind of exciting. But okay, Beacon Apparition is the trigger being pulled here just so that that second Ulamog's Crusher has a hope of getting things done.
So one of the reasons Arn did not play Face Feathers on the Vengevine is because if he attacked with Ulamog's Crusher, that would have been a soft target for Pascal to sacrifice. They would just sacrifice the Vengevine, and you would just have to come back at some point in the future without the Face Feathers.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's obviously a very powerful card, but it's got a strange bit of anti-synergy with the Ulamog's Crusher.
It's a pretty interesting game. I mean, the Crusher has been good, but it's facing a lot of blockers.
All right, so one of the options that's revealed here by this Forbidden Alchemy is Vengeful Rebirth. Now, I'm not quite sure what the most expensive card in the graveyard of Pascal Viren is here. I don't think it's going to be enough to deal with Ulamog's Crusher this time.
And there's a Phoenix that can come back.
Yeah, this is interesting. And the reason that Pascal Viren presumably is doing this now rather than later, Raf, is so that he can have as much information as possible about what he wants to sacrifice this turn.
The thing is, if he manages to deal with the Crusher, he might be in fine shape.
Yeah, I mean, once we get past the Crushers, there's an Angel of Despair, though that Angel of Despair at this point will have to be more than likely cast the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Well, Arn is close to be casting it.
He's definitely on the way. He's getting there. And the good thing for Huschenbeth is that he's done everything that he's done so far while still being able to keep a fair old grip of cards in hand.
Well, Pascal can also just take 8.
He could do that, yeah. Thus far, he's elected not to. So yeah, sacrifices 2 spiders, blocks with a 3rd spider, and of course that window of opportunity open to him again next turn if he so chooses. Ulamog's Crusher, very, very powerful, but relatively straightforward to play around. Once it's in play, you know exactly what it's going to do for the rest of the game.
It's going to attack, because that's the line on the card.
Absolutely it is. Now for Pascal, he's kept all of these lands around so that he can do either one big thing or a couple of things each and every turn. Let's see what those things are going to be. So, Mad Prophet sets him up for a little bit of a rummage, and a Fauna Shaman. That means 2 creatures, back comes a Vengevine. So again, we're in a spot where we could have a multiple block that could deal with that Crusher.
Yeah, Entomb not too good here anymore.
Yeah, Huschenbeth just generating a whole bunch of citizens. Those citizens don't look super exciting when you already have spiders on the other side of the battlefield.
He did a reckless recovery.
Oh, that's a shame.
No, that's actually fun because there's going to be a lot of action to kill the Crusher. So it's another way to get it back, and it's going to be 9/9 this time around.
So this time round, it was worth it to play the Faith Fetters just because it means that if Pascal Viren wants to get the multiple block to kill the Crusher, he's going to have to do so sacrificing some more value on the battlefield.
Well, the first sacrifice is pretty easy. It's going to be the Vengevine, but then, like, Pascal only has 7 lands left. So to deal with the Crusher, he's going to need resources. And now eating the land is going to be a problem. Back 2 turns ago when he could sacrifice island, forest, mountain was the problem. And now we're getting into the troubling zone.
Very much so. We're in the weeds, and there is still a potential for another copy of spider spawning, of course, which at this stage the spider spawnings will be substantial. But he kind of needs it at this stage.
Oh, he just drew it.
Oh, wow. I hope that we have enough tokens.
Well, since the spiders keep dying.
Oh yeah, we could have been in very awkward territory here.
Another one. So
That's what, 8, 9 tokens this time round.
that was a good one, because now the flashbacked spider spawning is going to be able to deal with the 9/9 Crusher on the following turn.
The fact that they're all 1/2s,
Yeah,
is sort of
you only kill 4.
yeah.
It's not that. And the thing is,
Even sacrificing 2 up front here.
yeah, Pascal is able to win the long game as well, because he has a Phoenix in the graveyard. He has a Vengevine. He has way to recover his creatures from the graveyard.
So Pascal throws an extra few creatures in the way of this Ulamog's Crusher here. Just wants to make sure, really doesn't want to have the Crusher survive this multiple block.
Oh, that's his deck, yeah. Now the plan is going to be to deck Pascal. I don't think Arn can actually win this game without decking Pascal.
And he does have a lot of blockers for these various spiders. He's been casually making citizens for quite a while now.
I think, yeah, and Pascal's plan is probably to win with the Phoenix. But then
4
Arn
cards
has
left
Phoenix.
in his deck.
Is it only 4? Yeah. 4 attacks of the Phoenix, it's not gonna do it.
1 Vengeful Rebirth in the graveyard.
21 life, that's a lot of life.
Vengeful Rebirth for Vengeful Rebirth is 6.
Yeah. And then,
well, you know, step 3 profit. I mean, the bit in the middle is your bit. You're the expert here. But here's the miraculous recovery on Ulamog's Crusher. Pulse of Marasa here.
good way to interact with
Sneaky.
just reanimator spells.
Gain some life. The life, not really the biggest of deals here.
Oh man, and he sacrificed his island, so no access to Lab Maniac. Oh, that would have been so good.
Super cool. Lab Maniac, one of those cards that...
He has one in his sideboard, I think.
There were a lot of them running around the table. Busted down from rare to uncommon in this set.
Did he pick one?
I don't... if he has any, he has exactly one. He definitely passed up on a few.
Well, you don't need more than one.
Correct.
And with Mad Prophet, it's a good way to win the game. You play it and you wait for opponent to do anything.
And then you just activate your Prophet.
You don't activate it as soon as you have the Prophet, because... as soon as you have the Maniac, because if they have a removal in response,
you just
then
lose.
just deck yourself and lose. So you just wait for your draw step. If they don't do anything, you just win the game. If they move, you just draw in response.
All right, so Pascal needing to get real busy real fast now. Just 3 cards left in his deck. Eternal Witness. So triggers Vengevine and gets back Spider Spawning.
All right.
This is going to be pretty close.
Missing Guanar could have been good as well.
Yeah, getting back the Iguanar actually I kind of like.
This face feathers on the Phoenix. 25 life is going to be even harder to reach.
If Anna Huschenbeth has figured out that this matchup is all about just putting on enough pressure that he can then win by decking, then it's a cunning plan, to say the least.
Because playing 7 Spider Spawning is just not enough.
So that is the Phoenix that got hit by Faith's Feathers rather than anything else that was under that gigantic stack of creatures. All right. You have not very many turns and 25 damage to deal, Pascal. Show us the way.
Is that good as reach?
What a funny old game of Magic this one has been.
Yeah. I mean, if you played in Innistrad, in the first Innistrad, you know that was one of the...
Oh, did I play Innistrad? I actually genuinely have 3 boxes of Innistrad sat at home so that I know if I'm having a really, really bad day, I can just... If I put out the call, I do not think I'll have any trouble finding 7 other people that want to draft Innistrad. It's my all-time favorite draft format. Absolutely love it.
And there's one card that's not in this format that made this the blue-green mill deck something.
There were quite a few cards in the blue-green mill deck that didn't make it to this format, but yeah.
But being one very important one, Journey to... Memory's Journey.
Memory's Journey was a big deal to get back the spider spawning to loop it forever. But yeah, there were so many cool decks to draft
and not to deck yourself.
Yeah, not decking yourself, a little bit more of a challenge for Pascal Viren here. Though he's doing a lovely job of getting all those spidery boys back on the battlefield. Look at them all, just skittering away. Need to rally some townsfolk on one side or other of this board if we're going to actually get a win through damage. Not too likely on either front. Pascal activates his Fauna Shaman just so he can see what's left in his deck. Elects to not find anything but just to shuffle. He gets another creature in the graveyard though, which will make his spider spawning that much larger. So hissing Iguana in hand.
Yeah.
Vengeful Rebirth for a second Hissing Iguana. Does that start to make...
Yeah, it could work.
It's certainly interesting. If every creature that dies represents 2 damage, then it's like those citizens can't block anymore.
So he needs 2 attacks. And there's no Iguana here.
There is no Iguana. Yes, we have no iguanas.
So it's 10, 13 spiders.
This is cool. I like this a lot. Quite a lot of citizens on the other side of things. And he didn't have enough mana to Vengeful Rebirth and cast an Iguana this turn, but if he had an Iguana in hand, not casting it this turn is...
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, I guess that maybe Vengeful Rebirth for 1 with the intention on casting both next turn might work out better on the math, but there's going to be a lot of citizens that fall to this attack right now.
Yeah, wasn't it better to just not attack and attack next turn with 2 Iguanars in play?
Possibly. Well, no, because then you just not block.
Yeah, you're right.
He needed to get some damage in now and or clear the board out a little bit. And there's also a flashback spider spawning potential for this turn.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a lot of extra creatures.
Wow, he might be able to make it. It looks like it.
Somewhere around the world, Brian David Marshall is cackling as he watches all of these spiders do their impressive work.
Spider bidding. That's what a spider does.
Oh my goodness me, look at all of these tokens. All of these spiders, in case we were unclear, are attacking. They might not look super tapped right now, but they really are.
They are 5 degrees tapped. It's just enough to be in the red zone.
And lo and behold, it's a spider spawning. That is spider spawning number 5, I believe. Because there was one that was removed with...
you're right.
With Beck and Apparition.
Might be 6. Because there was the...
Eternal
Witness, yeah.
This has been an absolutely bonkers game of Magic, ladies and gentlemen. Another occasion Crier.
Yeah, it should be enough. Anger.
Anger and the Iguana.
Oh, and the Vengevine.
And that means that Vengevine comes back.
Wow.
Everything's coming in, and there's the handshake. That was a great epic game of Magic. I love it. Pascal Viren, as it turns out, I mean, there was a point during the draft where we were looking at it and we were saying, I mean, the third spider spawning, is that really better than the second Faithless Looting? Turns out
It was.
one of those can win the game quite decisively. The other one just draw 2 cards and discards 2 cards. Congratulations to our Belgian friend Pascal Viren for getting the win there. We will have more Magic for you after these messages. Hello and welcome back to coverage of Grand Prix Prague. I am Tim Willoughby. This is Hall of Famer Raphael Levy. And after a pretty epic match that we had there with Pascal Viren just bringing all the spiders to the party, we're going to get a chance to see another one of our featured drafters from the draft table that we had. And we get a chance to have a little look about what they're working with. So this is Mark Tibiash's green-white heroic deck. He wasn't quite able to piece it all together last round, but it's got most of the key features that I'm looking for in a good heroic deck, which is solid bodies and ways of making those bodies even better.
Yeah, the early curve is a little light.
Mm-hmm.
It's only two 2-drops, but then the 5-drops are pretty scary with Umbras.
Yeah, you put any Umbra on a Sky Spear. There we go. Let's try that again. Put any of Umbra on a Sky Spear Cavalry, and you suddenly have a very, very dangerous threat indeed. Obviously, Mammoth Umbra become immense, become completely absurd with double strike, but even the likes of just a straightforward Hyena Umbra or Conviction on there does do a lot of work. And of course, that Conviction does extra work with the likes of Staunch-Hearted Warrior, maybe Hero of Lena Tower, in terms of getting lots and lots of heroic triggers over the course of the game. So a kind of a nice one there from this, just demonstrating a nuts and boltsy green-white deck. On the other side of things, we have blue-red Spell Madness. So 3 Reckless Worms. They have Madness. They absolutely love it if they get discarded. And there's a few ways of discarding them in this list.
Like 2.
The main one being Mad Prophet. That's the sort of the nice clean one in there. But the other thing to look at in this deck, look at the 2-drops, 3 rune snags to go alongside that young Pyromancer, and that potentially can set up some really, really nice sort of controlling elements.
Yeah, this deck is not exactly the red-blue deck you want to have, because the Menace enablers are just not very good. Skywing Aven to cast a Reckless Worm, it's just not optimal. Patchwork Gnomes are okay, but then Mad Prophet is just, it's good, it's a very good card, but it's already on turn 4. You played already on turn 4.
But we did see that Spider Spawning can do good work if it gets cast a lot. In this particular matchup, potentially we could see Rise from the Tides getting cast a few times thanks to Archaeomancer. So there is the potential, again, for lots of tokens between Rise to the Tides and that young Pyromancer. So we'll get a chance to find out whether or not it will be the tokens that take it again, or maybe whether or not we will see some heroic heroes working it for Mark Tobiash. We're actually joining this one in Game 3. Sorry, just be joining that match again. We'll find the appropriate game to jump in on this one. Mark Tobiash, he unfortunately wasn't able to pick up the win last round, but was undefeated yesterday in Ultimate Masters Sealed. And this is a player who has a lot of experience at the Pro Tour level. So we're going to get a chance to see exactly whether or not his heroic deck is going to be able to potentially put it all together again as we hit the second round of the draft on day 2. After this draft, we will have, obviously, one more game of this draft, a whole extra draft, and that's the point where the cuts to top 8 will be made, where for those of you that love drafting, well, you know what? We've got one more draft for you to figure out who our champion is going to be. So, just so you know, that wasn't a spoiler on how the matchup has gone between Mark Tobiash. Apparently, there was just a little issue in terms of the way that the bar at the top had been updated. That was it was Mark Tobiash's match from the last round that went to Game 3. So we sped it forward just far enough that we know that now everything that's represented on screen is in fact the match that we're watching. So we are now right on in it, and Andrei Smetana, he's got a little bit going in terms of rune snags. Mark Tobiash, he's just having to throw those spells into the counter magic and hope that all that's going to happen while he's not got any permanents is he takes a small amount of beats from that Stitcher's Apprentice.
I think Andre mulligan at least down to 5. It's turn 5 and he has 7, 8, 9 cards.
Yeah, not looking too good. Yeah. And Sunspear Cavalry coming along here for Tobiash. Even if it works out that he didn't really achieve too much in the early stages of the game, if he can just suit up this cavalry, then we could have a very, very quick game on our hands. Double Strike will close out games most quickly. And Mahamoti Yin there, ultimately not the one that Desolate Lighthouse was looking for. 6 mana, a little bit of a stretch just for now. The Lighthouse, another way of enabling madness, though it's a relatively expensive way of doing so.
Only 7 mana for a Reckless Worm.
Bargain. Reckless Worm and draw card.
Right. The thing is, I like the blue-red matchup in this match.
Okay, so here's a Conviction coming along for the Sunspear Cavalry, which makes it a 3-power double striker. What does Smetana have to say about this?
The thing is, Andre has a lot of bounce spells. He has how many just to win? 1 or 2?
I think it was just the one just the win, but we will find out soon enough.
And then he has an Ether Snipe?
He does, yes.
It's a lot of ways to deal with auras. And Mark does not have God's Willing. Or ways to play well against bounce spells.
Okay, so we have a few different options here for future turns in terms of where Mark Tobiash wants to throw his auras around. With Heroic in play, there's definitely a sort of temptation to get a lot of counters on his Ground Pounder, but equally, when you've got a double striker, you can close out games very quickly. Here comes Ether Snipe, and this is making the most of the fact that Mark Tobiash tapped out there. Immediately picked up the Conviction. No, that was not the one that was getting bounced. Being able to bounce the Sunspear Cavalry, obviously fantastic while Tobiash tapped out, because he couldn't pay a single white mana to return Conviction to his hand. Because
that would have been a disaster for Andre if he let Mark play with his Conviction on the defender.
So, I mean, Boar Umber does mean that the one creature that Mark Tobiash has to work with now substantial. Every time it gets targeted by one of Mark's effects, it will get 2+1/+1 counters. Prey upon now meaning that that's a 7-7? No, bigger than that even.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, no,
a 9-9. Prey upon, very, very good in these heroic decks because it is just, in addition to being a pretty decent removal spell, another way of targeting your own creatures.
Yeah, back in Theros, the defenders were not the top card, not the top heroic cards you wanted to draft. In this format, it's very different.
Yeah, they get very big very quickly, and I like the sort of... I always find it entertaining when the adjustments to a format change the values of cards substantially. Yeah. I mean, like the most obvious example of that would be back in Mirrodin when all of a sudden Shatter was better than Terror.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, any time that you have cards that get better through context, I think it sort of really goes to highlight the depth and variety that there is within Magic. Big attacks leads to a double block here.
Sure. Well, this guy is like 9/9. So
yeah, I mean,
both of them are
this
gonna
guy's
die.
big enough to kill all of these. I mean, a little intrigued as to where this double block came from.
Yeah, that's not going to be enough damage.
Not close to enough damage.
A little more than half the damage.
Yeah, I think that maybe the Boar Umbra had been forgotten about. Maybe he had thought it was a different Umbra for some reason. I'm not quite sure there, but...
Well, even if it's a 6/6, it still doesn't work.
Sunspear Cavalry coming along again, and that enough to close out Game 1. And we get to jump straight on into Game 2 here. Mark Tobiash having picked up the first one fairly straightforwardly. And all business here from each of these players, rattling through their turns at a good old rate. I think twice here from Ondrej.
A nice turn 2 play from Mark. One of his two drops.
Yeah, and to be fair, not a bad play from Smetana. He's got one of his discard outlets to potentially turn on the various madness spells available to him in his deck. All right, mono white for now for Mark Tobiash. Wingsteed Rider, a nice one. It's got flying, it's got that heroic ability, so being targeted will make it larger. Mahmotijian in hand for Ondrej, and he's not that far off casting it. Looks like he does have Adjust the Wind, so he's hanging back for now, making the most of the fact that he's got the bounce spell.
I like the red spell he has in hand.
What's he have there? I can't quite make it out.
It's the... I don't remember. Malevolent
Whispers?
Whispers, yes.
Yeah, this could be a nice one, because normally these effects that let you gain control of things are sorcery speed only, but when you've got madness involved, all of a sudden that can kind of go out the window.
Yeah, I'd marked attack with both creatures. That would have been a disaster for him.
Steal one, it blocks the other. Big old trades. 2 for 1. 2 for 1 town. That's where we want to live when it comes to Ultimate Masters. Unless
you're Pascal Viren, in that case you won
12 for 1.
12 for 1 with Spider Spawning.
So Wickerbarrow comes down. No obvious targets for it just yet, but you know what? It's still a reasonable body. And Mark just getting stuck in here, dealing the damage where he can to Ondrej without even needing to tap out for further pump spells. Thus far, there's not been too tempting a target for Just the Wind. I can see how, if you're Smetana, you kind of want to wait until you can deal with some sort of an enchantment as well. Sunspear Cavalry does seem like the sort of thing that might warrant a big response.
Yeah, 3/4 flying here would head Smetana a lot. Can keep most of the creatures at bay. It would trade for the 2/2 double strike.
Just casting a Reckless Worm here.
And decides to take 4 in the air.
I mean, hopefully it is only 4. Because lots of ways that this Sunspear Cavalry could get substantially larger here.
Yeah, Boar Umbra would be game here. Would be 10 damage in the air plus 3 on the ground.
Exactly 1 card in the graveyard, so become immense. Also a possibility. As it stands, though, Mark Tobiash not needing to move in just yet. Knocks Smetana down to 7 and then plays another Cavalry. This is going to be a tough one to get around.
I'll land for Mammotigen. No, it's not.
Okay, so 2 mana. This could be a young Pyromancer. The problem is that the ground is not the thing that he's really most worried about securing.
Yeah, he needs to play the 3/4 flyer here, at least to trade for cavalry, and then hope to find the 6th land for Mehamotijin, and then block the 2nd flyer. He has the ground controlled pretty much,
and he has just the wind in hand, such that if there was some trick now, he could likely protect against it.
Yeah, just the wind is not helping him at all this turn. I mean, he's still gonna take 4, and he's just dead next turn.
Yeah, this has been a rough old sequence of games for Andrei Smetana here.
I mean, what is he hoping for next turn? That's just a losing play here. And he found the mana to cast the Mehamotijin, so the other plan actually have worked. Unless Mark has a pump spell in hand, but there's nothing he can do about it.
Big decision time for Smetana. Not much life left to work with.
Yeah,
one flyer down, but it seems like both these flyers in the air ought to be lethal. No discard outlet to be able to instant speed steal anything. And for Mark Tibiash, it's just a matter of making sure. Tibiash, a very well-travelled German pro. He's been around the block a few times, has his success both at GP and Pro Tour level. So he's going to carefully figure out what he needs to play around here.
He's a reigning German champion as well.
I mean, if there's the likes of, for example, a Fiery Temper here, how does that change his view of the board?
I think it's still the same.
So this is a Heliod's Pilgrim pre-combat that lets him pick up an aura.
At least he will know now there's a Fiery Temper. Because if he goes for a Conviction, for example, that will trigger a Fiery Temper from Smetana's side of the board.
I mean, yeah, I think Conviction is the one to go for here.
Yeah, +1/+1. That would actually be the same. Any aura works here.
I do like playing the Pilgrim pre-combat. We know that it shouldn't really be needed, but this is a sort of a nice hedge against whatever it is that Smetana might be holding.
I mean, there's nothing else Andre can have. He can have fire, but in both cases, you want him to play it before combat. So as soon as you play your Conviction, so you know if you want to attack or not with the second one.
And Tobias here just working his way through other spells that might be in the format. Doesn't even play the Conviction, just attacks in.
Why not play the Conviction? All right, works the same since...
Yeah, as it turns out, there's the handshake regardless. So there is the win for Mark Tobias. He advances to 10-1 after round 11. So after the little stumble he had at the start of this draft, he has been able to pick up his first win, and it's looking obviously to finish positive on that draft. And we get a chance to show you a little bit more of one of our other matches that was in the feature match area. It turns out we got a little bit more recorded, so we can jump to that. And we have Kazutaka Naida on the left of our screen against Ignacio Garcia on the right. These two decks we don't have the full deck lists for, but we'll get a chance to see the deciding game between these two. They managed to split their game 1 and 2 between them, so this one will be the one that determines the winner there. And especially for Garcia, 8-1-1, he needs to be very, very careful about picking up any more losses, just because it is one of those things that with a big GP, tiebreakers can get kind of messy.
So he likes not to play a turn 2 Pyromancer to be able to play a Faceless Looting right away, or maybe just to be able to play his Rolling Trembler on turn 3. Rolling
Trembler right now seems like, in some respects you go, well, it's a 1-for-1, but my spell could do so much more. But like, this Winged Street Rider could very easily get out of control here very quickly. This Faithless Looting, I think that it may be a little bit of a misstep here, unless we've got, I mean, if there's like a Fiery Temper or something, then maybe.
I don't really see the point of playing the looting here. Like if your plan is to play the Templar, then you play it right now. You don't wait for your opponent to pump the Rider. And if you plan to play the Faceless Looting, at least you play the Pyromancer before. So I'm not sure.
So Naida here, the window definitely open for him to fly through with that Wingsteed Rider. Let's see whether or not he's got any spells to target it to make it a little bit larger. He has got a mountain in hand, so even though he's been playing planes for these first few turns, reasonable to think that his mana situation, if anything, he's flooded rather than having any kind of other mana issues.
So Ignacio is just bluffing Last Gasp? Could be.
A Last Gasp would certainly be very powerful here, and it's the sort of thing that ought to give Naida pause. I mean, obviously, we're in Game 3, so there is the potential that Garcia would have shown that off in earlier games. As things stand, though, 4 damage coming through, and now there's a lot of information that Naida will have got from that turn. It won't just simply be a matter of, well, I played this enchantment and then I attacked, and that was that.
Oh, no, the Templar does not kill flyers.
Ah, of course,
that's
yes.
Why. That's
there we
why.
go. We figured it out. Sorry about that, chat.
Why, yeah.
I'm sure the chat has been telling us all sorts
that's why.
For a little while now.
In any case, I would still play the Pyromancer before.
As things stand, we have more Faithless Lootings coming from Garcia. Picks up just a couple of lands there. Now, the scary thing about this Conviction, of course, is that it can get bounced back to Naida's hand. It can get recast. This Wingsteed Rider has every reason to be seen as doing a bit of a Slith impression, I suppose. Every single turn growing a little bit larger.
Okay, I'm going to have to apologize. He did not have a Young Pyromancer in hand. So everything I said up to now, forget about it. That was just a Soulspire that really looked like a Pyromancer in his hand.
Do you want to just take a mulligan on this round?
Yeah, I'll just start over.
Oh, look at this. So Conviction doing huge work here with this Wingsteed Rider. So we now an attack for 6 in the air by Katsutaka Naida. And if Garcia doesn't get something going very, very quickly to deal with this flyer, then he's just going to succumb to it.
So I have nothing wrong to say about Ignacio in this round.
All right, deal.
Nothing. This is all on me. I'll take full responsibility.
So Gulsteed coming along to fight the good fight on the ground here. Not quite sure if that's going to be good enough to deal with the assault coming in the air.
Does he have 2 Soulspires? He discarded one, and then they wouldn't have been good enough anyway.
How about a Mammoth Umbra? How do we feel about that one? So we now have
a big flyer.
I mean, it's 6. Is this just 10
7.
straight up in the air?
Yeah.
I think so.
Lethal. Can't block.
You're tapped out. Don't have any flyers. This is not a format known for its slaughter pacts and similar. There's the handshake.
I like the life total that just changed before the handshake.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the way it works out. So, yeah. Heroic, pretty powerful this round as it turns out. Not as powerful as all those spiders, though. I don't think anything is as powerful as all those spiders. Feel free to go back and clip that one. It's been a lovely round. We got more magic for you soon with our round 12 coming up very shortly. Do not go anywhere. More magic after these messages.